Check 1 2. 1 2. Mic check.
Good morning, everyone. And sorry for starting a little bit late, but sometimes we prefer for such important topics that we have today to be a little bit to make sure that everyone is able to come and survive in this cold weather. So now we're going to open our the informal discussions for today. This week mark as the week for the protocols. So we will start with work stream 2 for protocol 1 about services, about taxation of cross-border services. Then after that, we will turn in the middle of this week to work stream 3 for dispute resolution and prevention. So now we're going to start with work stream 2, who is co-led by Ms. Lieselot from Chile. I think it's before us the options paper that we have, which is outcome of the work of the work stream members, who I would like to thank them all for their efforts and commitment on attending all the work stream meetings and get to us with this important paper. And also, I think we have in our hands the literature review that I think was distributed on the same time with the options paper. But I think now we're going to start our discussion on the options paper itself. And before we start, I would just like to agree the direction of the discussions. We have options paper in our hand. This option paper, it states the current status, the problems that we have, and a list of the options that exist in our current international landscape. I see it that it's good to talk about it, but it will not move us forward if we kept talking about the solutions that we have now, or the deficiencies that we have in these solutions, or why it's not working, or whatever discussion around the current. I think that the direction and the attitude of the room that I expect, that how we should be moving from options to solutions. So I'm going to go for examples to make sure it's clear for everyone. So are we able to survive with any of the current options? If no, so are we able to develop any of these options that suffer some deficiencies so we can solve it, then it fit and be future-proof so we can live with it for the future? It just need a little bit of fixing. Do we need to combine like two of these options and get something new, innovative that can work better so we get like the good of two or three options and we combine it and work on it? I think different things that can take place, or maybe one of the countries that can come up and say, okay, we have a good experience in like whatever, and say, and this can, if we just upgrade it a little bit, it can work as an international tax solution. So even something out of these papers at all that can be, someone can bring it to the table. I wish that this will be the direction to be like constructive discussion. So because in August we will be coming back with the text for discussion in the plenary, and to be able to achieve this, we need to get a good direction from the room here, how we can move to the solution. What solutions should be in the text that we will come with in August. So I think we need to move forward to a constructive discussion about how we convert options to solutions which is future-proof, and to listen to your experience about how you can, what you suffered, what you see not working and can be fixed, in these options or even new options that you are proposing. So I'm just trying to set the attitude and the direction of discussion in this room to make sure that we are getting out from this session with something solid that we can build on it on the work streams and then on the text that you will see in August. So I will leave it here, and I think it's time for our co-lead, Lisa Lott, to take over and walk us through her presentation. Lisa, floor
Thank
is
you
yours.
very much, Rami, Chair. And thank you all for being here. Katie, we have a presentation. First of all, I want to thank all of you who participated since we had the last meeting in numerous online occasions, more than 100 participants, and thank you very much for that input. I have a responsibility of this draft options paper. It's laying the ground for the next step, which is what our chair has just said, is to try to move on the way forward, how to solve and how to deal with the issues that we have presented as problems. And if I could have, I don't know how to get the presentation here. Okay. So I can see, otherwise I might have a neck problem.
Yeah, they're trying to get it.
Okay, they will get it. Okay. So, you know, the paper is my responsibility. I, of course, have had lots of help from the Secretariat. Unfortunately, Patricia is not feeling well. She's not going to take part today. But, of course, she has been very helpful in doing this presentation, this draft options paper. And, you know, it's a responsibility for the co-lead to do this draft options paper. I have tried, the Secretariat have tried to be as, you know, showing the options that has been discussed and the different views that have been indicated in the meetings. Not everyone is happy, and that's sometimes a good thing, they say, when you negotiate, but hopefully all the points are there. Some would like to have them more detailed, and you know, because of the scope and the, you know, we need to read everything, it hasn't been as long as some would have liked. But I hope it gives the foundation for the next step, which is, you know, very, very important now that we actually go through and start thinking of the way forward. So I'm going to warm you up now with a little bit of a resume of the paper. So the next slide, please, Katie. So first of all, we have the statement of the problem. There are two primary approaches to taxation of cross-border services, and of course, variations of them. But the two primary approaches that we have is based on the physical presence, the place where services are performed, or the gross basis withholding taxes. So the problem is that when we had services provided on site, the two approaches produced similar results in the old days. As more type of services are digitally delivered, tax treaty tests based on physical presence limits taxation under the gross withholding taxes more than the first one with the physical presence. And of course, when you have a physical presence test, when you don't need a physical presence to provide a service, and when that type of services is actually outweighing by far other services, then we might have a problem. At least most of us think that that is a problem. Next slide. Now, developing countries often import more services than they export. And the fiscal effect on the developing country is influenced by taxation of both the service provider and the local payer. Developing countries also have higher corporate, mostly have higher corporate tax rates, creating an incentive to increase deductible payments. So we have a profit shifting problem here. Also, we have found out that developing countries may have small treaty networks, and the treaties they do have might, though, be covering most of their trade and investment. So there's a small group, but they cover a lot of investment into their countries. And what they have told us in the meeting is that they find it very difficult to negotiate change of terms in those bilateral tax treaties they have. We have also discussed the situation of developing countries that might want to be included in the multilateral approach, although they don't have very many tax treaties. Or, you know, this is something that I think is really important to understand. Many developing countries hasn't entered into double tax treaties because they are aware of the problems they might face today with services. And therefore, to provide a solution whereby we can have stable conditions international cross-border is also important for them. So we should not only talk about the existing bilateral treaties, but also be aware of, you know, this outstanding sort of group of countries that might want to be included in this type of solutions for double taxation. Next slide, please. So these are the questions that we will come back to, but they are the key questions. So we are going to discuss new nexus rules, continued role of physical presence, net and gross basis taxation, and possibility of different rules for different types of services. And what type of taxes covered should we discuss? Next slide. So when we are discussing these key substantive questions, we should keep some objectives in mind, like we should think about domestic resource mobilization, we should think about neutrality, we should think about trade and investment protection, and very important, particularly for developing countries, the administrability. Although I think it's important for everyone, but in particular, developing countries have raised the issue on administrability. Next slide, please. So, taxes. The concept is that Protocol 1 should cover taxes on income and other taxes with the same economic effect, based on their nature rather than their label. The goal of the broad definition is to eliminate disputes over whether certain taxes are indirect, covered by tax treaties, etc., or covered by tax treaties, etc., perhaps excluding traditional VAT and sales taxes, but including so-called DSTs, which perhaps we should call services on digital, taxes on services provided automatically. We must recognize that drafting should be precise and in order to achieve that goal. Next slide, please. So here are some core concepts for you to consider. The payment nexus, when we discuss nexuses, of course. Source country with withholding on cross-border service payments is primarily the location, identity of the payer, and the use benefit of the services in the source country, not the physical presence of the provider. So that's the payment nexus. The physical presence nexus, and I should mention, we could have different views for different services here, so that these are not sort of seen in isolation one by one. They can be combined, of course. Taxing rights arises only when the service provider has a tangible presence, fixed place of business, employees temporarily present, or a PE under Article 5, or a PE under any other definition that we want to decide in the source country. It emphasizes territoriality, an observable long-standing connection, which could be shorter as well in certain cases. And we have the economic market nexus. Taxing rights arises from the provider's sustained and targeted economic engagement with the market, customers, users, revenue, even without physical presence, reflects modern digital and remote delivery of services. Next slide. The method, we should perhaps touch on the method as well, because that is important. Tax treaties generally limit the amount of source taxation, but do not prescribe whether taxation should be on gross or net basis. Different methods of taxation, it could be gross withholding or net basis, provided overall limits are respected. A gross basis withholding approach is often preferred for taxing cross-border services, as it's simpler and widely used in practice. For many countries, this is the same issue that's arises with interest and royalty withholdings. They are applied on gross for certain reasons, which are simplicity. Rate limits should ensure shared taxing rights, allowing the resident state to retain a meaningful residual taxing power. And different tax rates for different types of services, we could also discuss this. Next slide. Implementation, we should also talk on implementation, administrability. So this is a little bit of what we heard in the discussions. Many countries favor revisions of existing systems to redress these imbalances that we have in existing tax treaties, but also, of course, as I said already, there might be a big group of countries that will be interested, although they do not have a big tax treaty network. The multi-process, like the one we are discussing here, may allow a more rapid implementation of any changes. However, some countries say that this is difficult sometimes because they have, in a bilateral negotiation, more possibility to ensure that changes are not only one-sided. Next slide. Thank you. Now, if we can have the next set of presentation, please, because there I hope I warmed you up, but now we're going to go into discussions. We have today, tomorrow, and half day on Wednesday to go and go through these questions. So I invite you all to have a look at this slide, which is the first one, where we would like to issue an invitation to you all to give us your input on the scope of taxes covered. So the scope are taxes on income, and the 3 points we put up: define covered taxes by economic substance, not but we would call them a label, and we should avoid pure legal engineering, which seems to be a sort of a way of keeping certain taxes out of tax treaties. And we should avoid classification disputes and treaty conflicts. Those are the points that I wanted to raise, and I invite you all to start the discussion, and I look forward to hear what your views are. So, you have... So, perhaps my warming up was scary. Don't have anyone asking for the floor. Please break the ice. Switzerland. Thank you, Jan. Please go ahead. Sorry, it's not Jan. Switzerland. Please go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Madam Co-Lead. It's a new week, so I still have to get my thoughts ready. But regarding the covered taxes, we would like to let you know that we welcome the approach to focus on income taxes, and in particular also to cover, irrespective of their label, taxes with the same economic effects. For that, the protocol can be effective in a neutral way and without distortions. It makes sense that the protocol has a broad field of application. Taxes that increase the cost of the service for the client and reduce the income of the provider should be included. Excluded from the scope of the protocol should, in our view, only be clear cases of VAT or sales taxes. And such taxes must operate in a traditional way, in the sense that they do not discriminate whether the value add happens in or outside of the country that charges the tax. They must therefore be charged independently of the place of the provider, be it by the provider himself or the client in a reverse charge. Another feature that could be taken into account for the exclusion of taxes of typical VAT is that they can be deducted as input tax by the client of the service provider when he is himself subject to VAT. So that would make sure that only added value is taxed at each layer of the chain. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Switzerland. I have the Russian Federation, please. Go ahead.
Доброе утро, уважаемые коллеги. Большое спасибо, госпожа председатель, за предоставленное слово. Это очень мудрое, на наш взгляд, решение начать легкую разминку именно с тех налогов, которые будут покрываться этим протоколом. Потому что, на наш взгляд, здесь мы, по всей видимости, достигнем определенного консенсуса. Даже те группы стран, у которых есть противоречия по другим более принципиальным вопросам. Ознакомившись с концепт-ноут второй рабочей группы, мы всецело поддерживаем тот комментарий, который был сделан в пункте 30 этой бумаги, а именно, что протокол должен применяться к налогам на доход, исключив, соответственно, исключив из применения протокола косвенные налоги. А в целом, пожалуй, все. Мы согласны с текстом концептуальной ноты, как я сказал, в пункте 30. Большое спасибо.
Thank you very much, Federation of Russia. Thank you. Nigeria and then India. First, Nigeria, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And a good day, everyone. It's our pleasure to be here and to present this view. And I will be speaking, or I will be presenting the view of the African group. So on behalf of African group, we want to welcome the paper that has been presented by the co-lead, and we welcome the view that has been expressed in the paper. And for us, we agree that the cover taxes should include all taxes on income derived from all categories of services, irrespective of categorization or means of providing such service. So we are looking at the scope covering income from all types of services, income derived in respect of provision of all categories of services. On your mention of DST, we agree that the scope should include taxes on income derived from the provision of all services, as we said earlier, and the nomenclature is irrelevant here, whether the service is provided digitally, electronically, or physically. The view of African group is we are looking at what the income is in respect of. If it is services, this means or mode of providing such service will not be material in this regard. Then in respect of what should the scope that will not be there, we agree that VAT will not be included in the scope of this rule. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Nigeria. So I have India, please. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and good day to all distinguished delegates. As some of the people have spoken earlier, we agree that what should be covered here are taxes on income, and as opposed to other consumption taxes or VAT, we believe that taxes on income earned from any sort of service should be covered. How that should be covered, that is something probably is a discussion that we will come back to later. But yes, we are agreeable on that point. We are also agreeable that indeed the definition of covered taxes is very essential because it leads to the third bullet, that any non-definition or ambiguity will create classification disputes and any conflict. So we are in general we are in agreement with the proposal that is there and in paragraph 30 of the issues note. Thank you.
Thank you, India. Spain, please.
Gracias a la facilitadora por el trabajo invertido en la realización de este papel. Agradecemos mucho todos los inputs que se desprenden del mismo y queríamos dar la bienvenida a esta discusión sobre el scope, pero tenemos un poco una primera duda, una duda primordial, que es si va a ser, si estamos hablando de un protocolo que modifique los convenios de doble imposición bilaterales, evidentemente el scope debe ser el mismo que el de los propios convenios y no deberíamos salir de los impuestos sobre la renta. Pero si es un compromiso, por así decir, en sí mismo, podemos quizá ampliar o explorar la ampliación de ese scope y entonces estamos dispuestos a ampliar, a explorar, por así decir, primero, ¿no? la discusión de si se deben incluir otros impuestos, como los impuestos digitales, que tenemos algunos países, incluidos nosotros, y bueno, puede ayudar a lo mejor a la conceptualización de nuevos nexos, especialmente para determinados servicios, como son los servicios online. En todo caso, no consideramos que se deba incluir el impuesto sobre el valor añadido. Nada más. Gracias.
Muchas gracias, España. Perú, please.
Muchas gracias, señora coordinadora. Dado que me ha brindado la palabra por primera vez, quisiera agradecer el trabajo de la mesa directiva de este comité, especialmente de la coordinadora, de la secretaría, dado que han plasmado en esta nota de opciones compartida con todos los Estados miembros la problemática que enfrentamos los países en desarrollo. En ese sentido, estamos de acuerdo con que este protocolo se aplique al impuesto a la renta, así como a cualquier otro impuesto que tenga el mismo efecto económico o que en la práctica sea similar a la naturaleza de un impuesto a la renta, y que se excluya de su ámbito de aplicación a los impuestos al valor agregado como el IGB. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, Perú. United Kingdom, please.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Co-Lead, and thank you also for the materials produced in advance of this session. Just going back to the problem which the protocol is intended to solve, it's been presented as the limitations imposed by existing tax treaties. As most of us know, tax treaties apply to taxes on income, so it's not entirely clear to us why the scope here should not just be taxes on income. In other words, if we're trying to define economically similar taxes, which actually I think it's going to be very difficult to do, but as my Indian colleague has mentioned, maybe that's for later down the line. What exactly is the problem we're trying to solve by extending the scope beyond taxes on income? So it's a question I want to put out there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, United Kingdom. I don't have anyone else, so let me just make a comment there. I think we don't want to go down the line of discussing what are taxes on income, because there are different views on that. And I think what we want to do is to avoid distortions. I think a colleague mentioned that. I think that's a very good explanation of what we're trying to do here. If you look to discussions on what is taxes on income. In fact, tax treaties cover interest and royalties, and they are gross-based withholding rates on them in our tax treaties. So where is the tax on income there? If you read authorized comments on it, you will see that it's actually a tax on capital. And for simplification, it is actually accepted under an income tax treaty. I don't want to go down that line. I want to keep what we have in the paper, which is, let's keep a broad definition or a broad scope for the taxes covered, because we want to solve real problems. So we don't want to limit ourselves to discussing on what are taxes on income, because we're going to get into a corner where we don't want to be. We want to have absolutely clear here, and we should avoid naming taxes something. We should try to go for taxes that creates forms of solutions of the problems we identified. So, taxes that applies to services, cross-border, and we should not try to sort of limit them on, names like DSTs or, whatever. Don't want to go into the discussion of what is, if a DST or a profit-shifting, diverted profit-shifting tax are in taxes on income or not. I don't think that's useful. What this group wants to do is to solve a problem. So that's what we've been discussing a little bit in the group. And it's not limited. And again, coming back to some of the questions that were raised in the comments by you here now, we don't only want to solve the problem with the tax treaties that limits certain taxes on certain services, because we're going to go down the drain of, as we have up on the slide, we're going to have legal engineering, and we don't want to do that. We want to be problem solving here. We want to solve the problem. We don't want to start planification of how to draft a special tax to not be included. We want to do the other opposite way. We want to draft something that works for all of us, that we can agree on. So I hope that sort of helps a little bit of hope to focus the discussion a little bit. And let's not go into a discussion on what is taxes on income in such a sort of technical way as we might do, but I don't think it's useful. And I've got Ghana. Please, go ahead, Ghana.
Right. Thank you, Madam Co-Lead, and congratulations on being able to come out with this options paper. It's a difficult job when two people are supposed to be doing something and one person is left with that job. So I want to congratulate you on that. And with that, we align with what the Africa group has said in terms of the coverage. And would like to add that if we look at the paper actually in 29 and 30, it is, and even if we look at the text in the terms of references of, it talks of taxation of income derived from tax from the provision of cross-border services in an increasingly digitalized and global economy. And so if we're looking at income, I do know that in our tax legislation, we don't even define income. We just give categories of income that are taxable. Because sometimes if you attempt to define, you leave some items out of scope. And so if this is revenue from services, then we agree that no matter how it is derived, it is income on revenue that is obtained from services. If someone provides a service, it's quite clear what it is. And so I would basically agree with you that we don't want to go into any engineering in terms of legalities. But if you are providing some service and you're getting some income from it and it's cross-border, then basically it falls within the scope of what we are discussing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ghana. I have Estonia. Please go ahead.
Thank you. I wanted to react to what Ghana just said regarding the covered service and the income derived from it. If we are to be in the situation that there is a service provided and then a payment for this service, and let's say we only have one transaction per particular service provider, then if this is a digital service and the consumer would be in the European Union and some other criteria is fulfilled, then VAT should be paid on this service. And perhaps also an income tax should be withheld on the gross amount. So there isn't really, that much difference because the tax base or the amount would be the same, both for the VAT and for the gross withholding tax. So inevitably the question will arise, should the protocol apply to both of them? And I would say that in this case, I'd leave out the VAT. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to sort of come back a little bit there, I think the VAT and certain sales taxes are sort of the things that we think we can take out of the scope. But again, I think it was our Swiss colleague who mentioned, that has to be a real VAT, not an engineered VAT. So, we have to look at it, something that is very technically very pure VAT in order to be there. But, that's the way that we're thinking forward in order just not to create distortions. In my country, we have a sort of rule in our law that says if there's no income tax on the cross-border, then VAT can apply, but you can't apply both. So, that's a domestic legal point. I have Ghana. Please come back, Daniel.
Thank you, Madam Co-Lead. And in response to the question that was raised, a VAT is an indirect tax. It's not a tax on income. It's actually a tax on the consumer. And so I think that I was very clear that I was talking about taxes on income and not VAT, which we've agreed is not in scope. And so I just wanted to make that clarification. In our tax law, we have a income tax on services, and we have a VAT on services by non-residents. So non-residents charge VAT and pay to us on services. They are two different things. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think, the problem we have had, is this engineering of how to keep certain taxes out of tax treaties. And some engineering then has sort of defined it as an excise tax or a VAT. And we have to be careful with that. That's the way we have discussed it in our meetings. And that's why, I think the point made by our Swiss colleague about, no distortions, but a real pure VAT could be considered as exceptions from our scope. But, this is it's sort of very practical that we need to make sure, and that's what we wanted to hear today, is that the scope, is not only tax treaties. The scope is wider than that. We're trying to solve a problem, and that needs to be much more comprehensive in order to avoid distortions and engineering, legal engineering, which we don't want. And I don't think we want the discussion either. At least in the meetings, we didn't have that. So let's focus on that. Thank you. India, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for giving me the floor once again. I'll be very quick. We have always held that what we should cover over here are direct taxes on income. And that is because we have a very simple problem. We have two separate tax administrations.
We have a direct tax administration and we have an indirect tax administration. So, and maybe there are other countries also around the table who have a similar structure. So that is one of the principal reasons why we have this belief that here we should cover only direct taxes and taxes on income. That's one of the reasons.
Let me just follow up with that, India. When we are in a multilateral setting like we are, we have to try to be, including everyone in the different systems that exist domestically. I just wanted to make sure that we all are understanding that we need to be comprehensive and not use nomenclature in order to limit our scope. We need to be dealing, I think, some colleagues said, on taxes on cross-border services. And then, once we have set that, we can sort of exclude certain sort of taxes that we think are not correctly in that scope. But the scope needs to be, very wide from the beginning. And then, the way we work forward, we can limit that scope because we need to take care of different systems. In the multilateral settings, that's really the point. And I think, one of the things we should avoid as well is to use the word DSTs because, that they, some things they are taxes on income and some don't think so. And that we don't want to have that discussion. So let's not use the nomenclature because then you get, you bog down into the discussion. What you need to discuss is the taxes on digital services and not the existing DSTs. That's what we want to include, and that's what we want to solve as a problem we have. Seems to be everyone is happy. Don't have any comments. That's good. I think in general in the meetings we had that consensus, I would say, that's the way we would work on this. So I'm happy to hear that we are in agreement on that here as well. So thank you for that. I got France. Please go ahead.
Merci Madame la Présidente et merci aussi pour ce document de travail qui permet effectivement de guider les débats et de faire qu'ils soient plus constructifs. J'ai deux remarques. La première, en tout cas pour ceux qui sont engagés dans des conventions bilatérales, je crois qu'il faut rappeler que nous avons aussi au sein de l'ONU un modèle de convention et il y a un article et des paragraphes dédiés dans les commentaires de ce modèle sur les impôts concernés, sur le champ d'application des impôts et je pense qu'il faut veiller, en tout cas pour ceux qui appliqueraient après cette convention dans le cadre de leur convention bilatérale, il faut veiller à ce que nous indiquons ici ne soit pas en contradiction avec les commentaires du modèle ONU. C'était le premier point. Pour ce qui est de la notion d'impôt sur le revenu, je comprends qu'il ne faille pas lister les impôts. J'ai l'impression que tout le monde partage cette position, mais il me semble tout de même qu'il faut poser quelques jalons. Vous avez parlé de l'impact économique, de cette notion d'impact économique du revenu. J'aurais tout de même aimé qu'on puisse s'attarder un petit peu sur la notion de revenu et à l'égard de qui, sans pour autant passer sur le champ d'application au regard des personnes visées. Je sais bien que nous parlons des impôts et du champ d'application des impôts. Mais sur cet impact économique et la notion de revenu, est-ce qu'on parle d'un revenu par rapport à celui qui verse qui paye la prestation de service, ou est-ce que c'est un revenu par rapport aux bénéficiaires? Et je crois que ça, c'est important de veiller sur ces quelques jalons que nous pourrions poser au regard de cette notion de substance économique, qu'on soit bien d'accord que chacun des États ait la même compréhension. Cet impact, ce revenu, il est qualifié de revenu au regard de qui? De l'État, des entreprises, des particuliers. Il me semble que c'est important d'être au moins d'accord sur ce jalon-là, parce que sinon, on ne va pas avoir la même compréhension. Et au final, on risque de créer des doubles impositions parce que les États n'auront pas la même compréhension de la portée de ce revenu. Je vous remercie, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Franz. I don't know if anyone wants to react to that. Yeah, okay. We have Senegal. Please go ahead.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Bonjour, Mesdames et Messieurs. Je vous remercie pour le texte qui a été présenté, mais aussi les commentaires formulés par la Présidente au titre de la catégorisation, mais aussi au titre des concepts notionnels pour ne pas définir le concept de revenu qui va nous retarder ou même créer plus de problèmes que nous voulons en résoudre. Concernant le champ d'application, je m'aligne à la position du groupe africain qui voudrait que nous ayons un champ d'application qui est large, de telle sorte que tous les services transfrontaliers, quelle que soit leur nature, soient dans le champ d'application de ce protocole que nous discutons. Maintenant, par rapport à la question, je pense, qui a été soulevée en matière de TVA, mais aussi, je pense, qui a été soulevée par la France concernant le redevable. Qu'est-ce que nous devons entendre? Qui doit supporter? Moi, je pense que quand nous sommes ici, nous avons parlé de prestations de services transfrontalières. Et quand vous faisiez votre exposé, vous avez aussi parlé de fournisseurs de services. Donc, qui encaisse le revenu? C'est le fournisseur qui encaisse un revenu. Quand on impose le fournisseur de services. De telle sorte qu'un fournisseur qui est établi, par exemple, au Pakistan, qui réalise une prestation de service au Sénégal, va être imposé sur le revenu réalisé au regard de la prestation effectuée au profit du Sénégal. Donc, le client qui est au Sénégal, il ne peut pas être considéré comme quelqu'un qui gagne le revenu. Au contraire, il paye un revenu. Et c'est là où l'importance en matière de ne pas inclure la TVA a un enjeu. Parce que même s'il y a une TVA qui est appliquée, mais elle est supportée par le client qui est au Sénégal. Et même si nous sommes dans une TVA pure, quand je parle de TVA pure, c'est-à-dire une TVA qui est acceptable par sa neutralité, la neutralité se fait au niveau du Sénégal. On n'est pas donc dans un processus transfrontalier. Tout se fait au niveau national. C'est pourquoi on ne peut en aucun cas inclure la TVA dans ce protocole. Tout va s'articuler autour vraiment du revenu et autour du revenu qui est gagné par le prestataire qui est étranger. Donc ça, c'était vraiment la deuxième observation. Troisième observation, c'est par rapport à la certitude fiscale qui constitue le troisième point et qui est aussi très important. Et je pense que cette certitude fiscale, elle doit être garantie, mais elle sera garantie par le biais des modalités d'imposition que nous définirons ultérieurement. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much, Senegal. United Kingdom.
Thank you, Madam Co-Leader, for letting me come back on this point. I'm still not sure I really follow. If you have a tax that's not a tax on income, so whether it's legally engineered or not, I'm not quite sure what that means, but then that tax won't be within the scope of a tax treaty, so the country imposing the tax is not limited on their application, so that's outside of the problem that we're trying to solve. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me say something to just sort of illustrate where I think we don't want to be, but to perhaps for us to understand the point. Let's say that we have a tax treaty between Chile and the UK, which we have actually, and that the UK has a tax on digital services. It's called a digital service tax, and in accordance to the UK, that tax is not a tax on income and it's not covered by the tax treaty. By the Chilean tax administration, however, we look at it and we say, look, this is very similar to a tax on income, and we think it is covered and you shouldn't apply it. So we have a problem. We don't want to go down that road. We want to solve the problem in this room. And that's why we're here, for a multilateral agreement on issues that we think is the problem. And we don't want to go down the drain and have the problem of different countries having different opinions on what is a tax on income. I don't know if that is sort of helpful.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think that is quite helpful. I guess you're also going to get the same sort of arguments about whether a tax is economically similar to a tax on income, but maybe that's for if this is going to be the scope, that will be an issue for the definition to be discussed further down the line. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit of what I wanted to comment as well. I think before I have three asking for, but just to say a small comment before. I think, you know, sometimes you get into the chicken and egg situation. You know, you sort of have a problem, and then you know the sort of we can solve it this way, but then you have like sort of the problem here. I think you go down, and I think the solution that we're thinking about here is to have a broad scope, and then when we try to find the nexus, when we go to find the different roots of the solutions, we find situations where it's like France mentioned, you know, this might be the service provider or something like that, and then we look at the problem. But I think the way that we want to work now is to have this broad scope so that we're not fomenting solutions on an engineering type of legal, you know, we want to make real problems solved real. That's the way that we're thinking of working. So I hope that's helpful. Germany, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Co-Lead. Good morning, distinguished colleagues and delegates. Germany appreciates the discussion we are currently having with regard to the scope and taxes covered. In our view, the protocol would not need to be limited to income taxes, but could cover taxes with a functionally equivalent effect. That being said, we deem it necessary to provide for clear, defined, and narrowly interpreted criteria in order to avoid a blanket inclusion of all kinds of taxes and to avoid exactly the kind of disputes about the classification of taxes that we are seeking to avoid. In that regard, we would have major reservations in including all kinds of taxes, and specifically, as was said by others, we would urge caution regarding the inclusion of VAT, but also other indirect taxes and excise duties, as well as, and I'm not sure whether that was mentioned, wealth taxes. Thank you.
Thank you, Germany. Canada, please.
Merci, Madame la coprésidente. Je crois que la nature de mon commentaire revient un peu au point que vous avez fait à propos de l'analogie de l'œuf et la poule. Je crois qu'à ce moment-ci, on n'a pas vraiment d'objection à l'approche que vous proposez, mais il me semble que c'est surtout une question qu'il va falloir peut-être reconsidérer plus tard, après qu'on va avoir eu l'occasion de discuter de la question de nexus et de la méthode d'imposition. Peut-être que ça va être utile à ce moment-ci de revenir sur la portée exactement, la portée du protocole et faire les ajustements nécessaires après avoir eu la discussion sur ces deux autres questions. Merci.
Thank you very much, Canada. Italy, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you also for your presentation, for providing us the option paper. We followed with a lot of interest this discussion, and at this point we would support the Canadian suggestion. We agree that this exercise of drafting the protocol can be the base for a more ambitious project to stabilize the system, but perhaps it's a bit premature. We could perhaps work first at the nexus, the connecting criteria we would really build in a more clear way, and then having in mind the possibility to have a broad scope, perhaps give some line in an explanatory note or in a mutual understanding, so that for providing guiding on what we really want to cover. But of course, designing clear nexus is our task, I do believe. And in this respect, I think that Canadian suggestion is very wise. It's premature perhaps to conclude on this discussion. Let's go to the nexus first, and then we will provide some more thought, possibly in a mutual understanding or in an explanatory note that will be accompanying this instrument. Thank you.
Thank you, Italy. Just from my understanding, the way that I understood and that what we had proposed, which seemed to get a sort of agreement between us all, is that we start off this road with a broad scope. And then when we go through the different things like nexus, like whatever, like I think our colleague from France said, then we can see if there are things that, we are not going to include. But the road, it's not going to be sort of, let's bounce back then and look at, the road is starting off. We're not going to limit the starting off because we come up with a solution later on. I think the road is clear. We start with a big scope, with the scope as we've said now. And then in the road, where we get to what we want, then we will discuss the different issues, which is much more easy, because to, in an abstract way, try to avoid, certain types of taxes, it really gets really, chicken and egg situation again. I think what we have agreed is that we start off with this scope, and then when we go through the road on the different solutions with Nexus, whatever is our way forward, then we can see if there is a type of VAT that we will be able to explicitly exclude, or whatever, whatever we find. But I think we need to start off with something. That's the way I understood the French and the Canadian intervention, but I might have misunderstood it. But they will correct me. I have Spain, please.
Sí, gracias. Sí, yo quería entrar en esta discusión porque efectivamente yo estaba pensando que la discusión está en el nexo, la discusión primera. Porque bueno, ¿por qué queremos meter el impuesto digital y no impuestos especiales? O sea, va a ser muy difícil ahora mismo, tal y como estamos empezando, llegar a la delimitación de qué impuesto incluimos, qué impuesto no incluimos. Igual que estamos incluyendo el impuesto digital, a lo mejor podríamos incluir otros impuestos especiales, porque puede ser también una naturaleza parecida. Entonces, creemos que lo importante es el nexo y en ese sentido apoyamos a Canadá, o como hemos entendido nosotros la intervención de Canadá. Gracias.
Thank you, Spain. Belgium, please.
Thank you, co-lead, and thanks for all the work done on the paper and on the presentation. We would like to align ourselves with the previous distinguished delegate of Germany, and also with the approach that Canada and Italy and Spain now aligned with. We believe that, although I can get your point on chicken egg, but I would prefer to talk about what you see maybe then as the egg on the nexuses first, and then we go back on how we will define the scope. Because, to be honest, you say we will avoid classification disputes also this way, but as the distinguished delegate of the UK says, we will come back to classification disputes anyway. I think it's not because we say taxes on income and we will see this broad that there will still arise questions later on. So I would prefer that we do the discussion on the nexus first, and then we come back on the scope again. Thank you.
Thank you, Belgium. Czechia? No, so what is?
Thank you, Cody, for giving me the floor and also for sharing with us your draft options paper and his presentation this morning. I just very quickly wanted to say that we share a certain confusion about the discussion right now, and we also support what the distinguished delegate from Canada said regarding maybe discussing first the nexus and then discussing scope, because we think that at this moment, maybe when a strong limitation or discussion of the scope is a bit premature. And then I would like to also echo what distinguished delegate from Belgium said regarding the issues of classification. I mean, I absolutely agree with you saying that once we get into nitty-gritty details of definitions, we'll realize that many issues will arise, especially if we start discussing things from economic perspective rather than from legal point of view. Thank you.
Thank you, Czechia. Russian Federation, please.
Большое спасибо, госпожа председатель, за вновь предоставленное слово. Мы начали дискуссию с нашими коллегами, говоря о том, что входит в охват данного налога. И вот плавно переходим к дискуссии, что, наверное, первичным было бы обсуждать правила привязки Nexus Rules. Во всяком случае, мы думаем следующее, что это может быть даже не разговор, не спор о курице и яйце, потому что здесь очевидно все, что сначала нужно, безусловно, обсудить охват данного налога, а потом уже переходить к более другим вопросам, связанным и с привязкой, и налогоплательщиками и так далее. Во всяком случае, на этом строятся конструкции, на мой взгляд, налоговых систем, налоговых кодексов, налоговых положений в различных странах, что сначала дается определение налога, а потом уже идут другие определения, связанные с элементами данного налога, как налоговая база, привязка, налогоплательщики и так далее, и так далее. Поэтому мы всецело поддерживаем тот подход, который секретариат нам предложил, с точки зрения того, что первым, конечно, следует обсудить вопрос, связанный с тем, какие налоги, какой налог на доход будет покрываться данным протоколом. И последнее, личное уже от нашей делегации, мы Патрисии желаем скорейшего выздоровления. Большое спасибо.
Thank you, Russian Federation. I'm sure Patricia is listening in, so she appreciate that comment. Thank you. Norway, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Co-Lead, and let me start by thanking you for providing us with this paper, the presentation, and all the discussions we've had in the work stream. Listening to the discussion, there seems to be some confusion in the room about what exactly is meant by economic substance and taxes that are similar to taxes on income by way of economic substance, or in the paper it says have the same economic effect. And we think it would be wise to use the approach suggested by Canada that we have. It's very useful to have this first round now, and I completely understand the goal of having a comprehensive coverage of the protocol, but that it would be informative of defining the scope with respect to taxes covered once we have had a thorough discussions of some of the other issues that comes up later. So we would support the approach suggested by Canada. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Norway. Kenya, please.
Greetings. Co-lead, Chair, Secretariat in absentia. I believe we are addressing a very pertinent issue at the moment, and it's so interesting that when you clearly elaborate what should not be discussed, it's when it comes up. I can see the third bullet, you've indicated that we should avoid classification disputes and treaty conflicts. but actually we've started at that particular point. I'm imagining a situation where if we were to write these rules 30 years ago, would we be able to know what kind of nexus that we want to align with either the services that we are looking at or the tax that are to be covered? So when we are looking at the scope, we need to be in a situation where we are creating something futuristic. Yes, we can come up with the nexus rules, but you must be knowing what are you targeting exactly. So 20 years to come, we do not know how services will be provided, 30 years. So we have to capture broadly the services at this particular point. Then as we go along, we look at the taxes that need to be covered, and if there are exceptions, then we point out. And I think it has been clearly put across on the issue of VAT and sales on tax, tax on sales. So I think it's a question of trying to cover in the broad, or make the definition as broad as possible, so that as we go along, as we look at the other factors that will come down the line, we are able now to steer the conversation clearly as to what will suit the problems that exist. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kenya. Nigeria, please, go ahead.
Thank you again, Madam Colleagues. Now I will be speaking on behalf of Nigeria and not the African group. In Nigeria, we have a proverb that says you don't start backing a child from his legs. For us, and it's something we also note that there's hardly, from my understanding, there's hardly any country, I'm not aware of any, that starts its tax law by stating nexus or sourcing rule. The start laws starts by the coverage of what the law will cover, what is considered as income. Similarly, if you go to the tax treaty, it doesn't start with nexus or sourcing rule. It starts with covered income. So, Madam Co-Lead, we agree with the paper as is presently presented that we should start with covered taxes or income that will be subject to this rule. And we also agree with the paper that the covered taxes should not just be taxes we call by label income tax, but every other taxes that function as income taxes. And how we see this is that if there is a service, any income that is earned from that service, any tax imposed on that income will constitute taxes on income for this purpose. So we are not looking at the label, we are looking at a broad scope that covers all taxes that is imposed on such income. Thank you.
Thank you, Nigeria. Senegal, please. Come on.
Merci, Madame, de m'avoir redonné la parole. Je voulais intervenir juste par rapport à l'approche. Je pense que nous avons reçu un mandat. C'est d'élaborer un protocole sur les services transfrontaliers dans le contexte d'une économie fortement numérisée. Ce qui va nous pousser à poser la question suivante. Qu'est-ce que nous voulons imposer d'abord? Ce que nous voulons imposer, ce sont les prestations de services, aussi bien traditionnelles que les nouvelles formes de prestations de services. Donc, si nous ne parvenons pas à définir d'abord le champ d'application, nous ne pouvons pas avancer sur comment nous allons imposer. D'abord, c'est le champ d'application. Et quand nous avons défini le champ d'application, nous allons voir la manière d'imposer. Et c'est cette manière d'ailleurs qui va faire appel aux règles de nexus, aux règles de lien. Quand j'ai suivi votre présentation, vous avez parlé de 3 types de liens. Un lien lié au paiement, qui nous envoie aux services numériques, vous avez un lien physique qui nous renvoie aux prestations traditionnelles, et vous avez aussi un lien qui est économique qui nous envoie aux services numériques, aux AD, services automatiques numérisés. Donc, pour moi, il faudrait même qu'on ait une certaine cohérence dans notre démarche. Fixons d'abord le champ d'application, voyons par quelle manière ce qui est dans le champ d'application va être imposé. C'est en ce moment-là, maintenant, que les règles de Nexus doivent maintenant faire l'objet d'une discussion. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Senegal. Portugal, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Madam Co-Chair. Good morning, everyone. Let me start by showing our appreciation for the products, the outputs of the work of the Workstream 2 that were presented through your hands, Madam Co-Lead, and also with the support of the Secretariat, of course. And well, in relation to the point that we are discussing in this precise moment, I confess that I am a little bit puzzled, and I will explain why. Hearing the floor, I am becoming more unsure in respect of what we are aiming to obtain through this protocol. I end up reading the notes with the idea that this protocol was primarily adding to a point where it would act upon some nexus rules that we have in the tax treaties that are in force, somehow demanding that some articles of that tax treaties would not be applied, and the solution that would be on the protocol would then be applied. But somehow we are discussing taxes, services, cross-border services. And this somehow calls me the idea that, or at least I'm in doubt, if the protocol would also, or in alternative, adding to a model, to prescribe a model of taxation of cross-border services. And in that case, I believe that this is a different discussion altogether. Because if we are talking about taxes over cross-border services, well, then I believe that the position that was made by the United Kingdom was pretty sure easy to understand. Well, if we are going to act over tax treaties, probably what is already covered taxes under that tax treaties would then be the scope of what we are doing. But and then we will have the problem, the same problem that we have with cities, that deciding what is an income tax through the perspective of its economic substance. That's a problem that we already have. But then again, if we are discussing a model to tax cross-border services, then I believe that the problem is somehow different. And I don't want to commit the unfairness of demanding an answer from you, colleague, because I believe that it's up for us to decide, but I would like to have some, if this is in fact a question that I'm having that is common to the grounds, or if I'm completely lost of translation in this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Portugal. Let me see if I can help out a little bit. I think the majority, from what I understand, are interested in is solving a problem that is taxation of cross-border services in a very comprehensive way. And the idea is to deal with that not only for those who have covered tax treaties, but also countries who might want to solve their problem multilaterally and include themselves in a comprehensive agreement on issues of taxation of cross-border services. And we want to avoid the discussion if what some countries have implemented, a DST, is or not an income tax. We want to solve the problem. And the problem is that one country may think that that is domestic taxation, they have the right to tax, and others think, no, they are overriding my tax treaty. We don't want to have that discussion. We want to solve the problem. I have IDS on the screen. IDS, I don't know what IDS is, but you're very welcome to speak. And present yourself, please.
Yeah, thanks for letting me speak. IDS is the Institute of Development Studies, where also the International Center for Tax and Development is based, where I'm working. Just hearing the discussion, I wanted to kind of make a brainstorming contribution on this issue, and I think this saying which taxes are covered probably depends a lot on what solution is eventually found, or the implication of saying which taxes is covered. But if we just suppose or imagine that in the end a solution is found whereby a nexus is defined and source countries according to this nexus can tax income up to a certain limit, and there's a corresponding obligation on the residence country or other countries to provide double taxation, then it could be possible that taxes covered don't need to be defined if it is basically left open to the source country to tax up to this certain limit by whatever means could be left free to the source country. If that source country then wants to further tax these revenue streams, whether that's by a DST or another country, then that might still be possible, but then the obligation to provide corresponding relief goes away, in which sense then that tax might lose the character of an income tax and become more a tax on the revenue stream or on the local customer. But in that, just thinking in that framework, it might not actually be necessary to actually say what is the covered tax, but just provide a certain limit, and how that limit is actually reached. That maybe that doesn't matter so much. It's just just a quick reaction to what was discussed, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yeah, let me just add something a little bit, because it seems like there are a different view, and I don't really see it as a different view. I just see it in the way we go forward, because it seemed to me that we were in consensus of the problem, and that we want to solve the problem and the taxes and the scope, and start off like that. And then some members gave us the view that, well, when we look at nexus, then we need to redefine the scope. But that's exactly what we said. We start with a big scope, and then we go down the line and we look in practical issues. When we go into the nexus, then we can start and look in detail if we're going to exclude certain things. I really don't see a very big difference there. It seems to me that, there is some, to be honest, I don't see the big issue there. So just let me see if, because it's exactly the same thing to me, but it might be someone who thinks it's a big difference. But the point what I'm saying is, from the beginning, was that it seemed to me that we had consensus of keeping a scope of taxes on income and economic equivalent taxes to start off with. Then we go down the work and look at nexus, looks at different things, and we can see if that scope is still the right scope, or if we, and in that road, can take out some clear VAT or some taxes that we can agree on shouldn't be within the scope. So I really don't see, to be honest, the big difference here. But I stand to be corrected. I have Botswana. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Co-Lead. You seem to have taken most of the words that I wanted to say. It seems like we're in agreement this morning. However, I wanted to just make a note. Maybe it's something that we might want to take into consideration. It seems like we have a big word there, which is economic substance. Maybe if we can also agree to break it down and really share ideas on what we really mean by economic substance. Maybe if we break it down, then it might direct us into the conversations we really want to have, as you've already put forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Botswana. Rami, please, go ahead. Chair or Egypt, I don't know.
No, I think more like Rami, so I'm providing my own point of view. And just to reflect on what just you said, and I think maybe it's not a big difference. It can go both ways, but like maybe there is impact from the scope on how to design the nexus, and also the nexus can take you back again to the scope, to revisit it to ensure you are in the right way. But like if we need to decide from where to start, I think the scope may have a little bit more influence over the nexus. So I will see it as maybe Lisa also see it, that you go from the big, then we start discussing the nexus. While still the 2 points of views, right? So again, you can see it like, okay, the nexus will determine the scope. But I think from my personal point of view, that there is like interaction between both of them, but I think a little bit more influence from the scope in determining the nexus. Of course, it's a personal point of view. Maybe others can say it a different way, but like again, and this go with the concept that you're going from the wider to the little bit narrow thing. So that's why we need to kick off. So we need to start from a certain point. So maybe I'm going with the idea again from the wider to the narrow. Not for anything, not saying that other point of view is not right. Of course it's right, but like just saying maybe there is a higher influence from the scope in the nexus. Then in the nexus you can determine while you see what you are targeting. Actually, this will give you more visibility in discussing the nexus. So again, it's just to the kickoff from where we start. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rami. I have Lesotho. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Co-lead. For us, I think it's just a question of semantics, and in fact, I think we have already dealt with the nexus by broadening the scope. We have actually dealt with the nexus. And I can only imagine that should we find something in the nexus that does not talk to what you have already agreed in the scope, then we might have also need to define a new nexus rule. But all I'm thinking is that by being broad enough, you have dealt with whatever we need to do. In other words, all cross-border services, regardless of the manner in which they are delivered. So I guess when we get to the nexus, it will only confirm our correctness in terms of being brought in the scope. I think, like you're saying, call it, it's not even chicken and egg. It's actually, when you talk about the nexus, and the broad approach that we have taken here, we should be able to get to the same result. So we really do not see any value add in terms of whether we start with the nexus or defining the broad scope. So the broad scope has already taken care of all the issues that are part and parcel of the nexus rules. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Lesotho. I have Zambia. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chairs, and thank you, co-lead, for the concept paper. And also, Zambia would like to thank the fellow delegates for their insightful and constructive contribution, and those who've spoken before me. Zambia aligns itself fully with the statement that was delivered by the Africa Group. And also we do support the views that have been brought forward by Kenya, Nigeria, Senegal, Ghana, Lesotho, and Botswana. And also I do share the views that there is a strong interlinkage between obviously the scope, the nexus, and the categories. For Zambia, we think that scope must answer one question only, which is what income is covered by the protocol. And obviously, when we're looking at cross-border services, this is obviously something that's huge. And like I've said, there is an interlinkage between the nexus and the scope. But as said by wise people before me, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. And therefore, we support a broad technology-neutral scope covering all cross-border services defined by negation. And as we debate on which one starts first, like you've said, I think the scope would be a better way to start because it would be broader. And then as we go forward, we could then look at the different elements of the proposed protocol and how they should fit in together to a coherent and disciplined manner. I thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zambia. Morocco, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Co-Lead. And good morning, everyone. So just wanted to express our preference to the approach you presented, starting by the taxes covered, by the scope and taxes covered, because as you explained, we agree that it will provide more clarity to the following steps rather than the other way around. I think. Starting with the wide scope and agree on the taxes covered will enable us to move on more efficiently. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Morocco. I have CYI, which is Children and Youth International. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Mael Rogers, and I'm honored to take the floor on behalf of the major group of children and youth, as well as Children and Youth International. I'd like to first start off my statement by reiterating how grateful and honored we are to be here today. And this is yet another step towards ensuring that the voices of children or youth are heard. Chair, colleagues, delegates, it's an undeniable fact that our world is becoming increasingly digitalized. Therefore, the integration of the digital economy is fundamental to generating an equitable global tax convention. Today, the lack of effective regulation of the digital economy has created a system in which many source countries are systematically disadvantaged and in many cases exploited by the world's top corporations. For children and youth in developing countries, unfair digital tax practices take roots in their lives when classrooms lack resources to provide adequate education, when publicly funded hospitals become overcrowded, and they lack necessary social protections. At the same time, weak regulations leave digital spaces open to exploitations of workers, of consumers, and of entire economies. Therefore, we believe that Protocol 1 of the INC Tax Convention is a critical step forward. An equitable global economy is unachievable without the equitable distribution of taxing rights over the digital markets. Protocol 1 is more than just an instrument for economic equity, but a vital step in breaking generational patterns of exploitation within developing nations. The protocol should serve to strengthen existing tax treaties within developing nations and provide safeguards for the promotions of more bilateral treaties. The effort towards creating an equitable tax treaty begins with localized changes that eventually shape global standards. The protocol should recognize income derived from all categories of taxes as to prevent the abuse of the taxing conventions. Furthermore, this protocol should directly encourage treaties between the private sector and member states, especially developing nations. The digital economy has created significant opportunities for value generation across borders, drawing on users, data, and markets in many countries. Ensuring that this value creation is accompanied by fair, predictable, and transparent tax contributions in source jurisdictions is an important part of sustaining the public goods that enable digital markets to function effectively. Lastly, I'd like to stress that the execution and promotion of this protocol can't happen in isolation, but is a multilateral effort requiring meaningful partnership between member states, private enterprises, and the voices of tomorrow, our global network of youth. The standards set by this tax convention will actively decide whether we continue to relive the mistakes of our past or make conscious efforts towards creating an equitable future. Chair, colleagues, delegates, we urge member states to approach Protocol 1 with collaboration, ingenuity, shaping a tax convention that leaves no one behind. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that contribution. I was a youth very long time ago, so it's nice to hear that you are here and supporting us. Thank you very much. I have stakeholder 2, which is independent expert on foreign debt. Please present yourself.
Thank you very much. Atia Waris, UN independent expert on foreign debt and international financial obligations. I'm going to just speak very briefly. I think while I can hear that member states are divided as to where to start, I'd like to suggest we start with both together. I think that they can be dealt with almost simultaneously. I think member states are already starting to do that. And I think it's worthwhile trying it so that we can move the conversation forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have stakeholder 3, which is IBFD. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Khalid, for giving me the floor. And I wish Patricia a quick recovery. With regards to the scoping of taxes, I think it is unavoidable to go into some depth on this topic. And I believe one way is clearly scoping out what is not covered as an income tax, as mentioned by several delegates on the floor. And this, I think, should have reference to the recoupmentability or refundability of such taxes, or even the ability to transfer the burden of such taxes to a final consumer. So if we take these elements and ensure that whatever tax is being introduced does not produce a similar effect to what an indirect tax would, then I believe that would be a good way forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, IBFD. I have stakeholder 1, which I think is the Committee on Fiscal Studies. Please present yourself.
Thank you very much, Madam Co-Chair. I am Leila Latif, representing the Committee on Fiscal Studies. I've got 2 interventions to make on the topic being discussed, which is related to taxes being covered. The scope of the protocol must be defined to ensure that it captures the full range of instruments through which states tax income from cross-border services and the full range of services through which revenue loss occurs. This needs to be quite clear for us to also understand how to now intervene in the definition of covered taxes by economic substance. On taxes covered, the definition should encompass any tax imposed on a person or entity by reference to income, profits, or gross receipts that that person or entity derives from the provision of cross-border services, because states tax the same income through different instruments, this being, the corporate income tax, withholding taxes, revenue-based levies, and a definition tied to the form of the instrument rather than the object of taxation will fragment the very framework the protocol is intended to create. Now, the taxes covered should also be tied to also understanding the services that are going to be covered, as this will make the discussion more clearer, in that the protocol should indeed apply broadly with narrow defined exclusions rather than enumerate specific categories, because having a positive list will invite boundary disputes and it will become obsolete as digital business models keep evolving. But it must also ensure that things like or aspects like technical services, management fees, consultancy services, and even automated digital services are unambiguously within scope, as these are the categories through which the most significant base erosion and profit shifting or even different forms of revenue loss occur, and where the gap between existing treaty constraints and source states' domestic taxing rights is the widest. So 2 questions are connected. A protocol that defines covered taxes narrowly is going to fail to capture the instruments that states have devised to already tax digital services. And a protocol that defines covered services too narrowly, we think, will fail to reach the transactions through which income is shifted out of source jurisdictions. And either gap will render the instrument ineffective for its stated purpose. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that input. I think I have my chair. Please go ahead, Rami.
Thank you for all for the interventions. Maybe I was thinking about it from a different perspective, a little bit from a process perspective, and how we can move efficiently. So I think going from the nexus to the scope, what I'm afraid of that we get trapped in a circle in which if we decide the nexus, then you go to discuss the scope, then you should limit the scope to what you agreed in the nexus. Or if you would like to add to the scope, so this may bring you back to the nexus that you need to revise it. And upon this revision, maybe you go back to the scope. So you are trapped in a circle. While if you have like the white thing, which is the scope first, then you know and clear about how you go to the nexus. Even if the nexus required something to be added, just you need to go and add it. And instead of be trapped in this circle, which is like binomial in any process design, regardless of tax. Now, it is a big mistake if you go from the narrow path to the wider one. Usually, you go from the wider path to. This is something like in the process management, like you should not go the opposite way. So just raising my fears about like to get stuck in a circle when we start with the nexus. Then we are not sure what is the scope. Should we just limit it to what we agreed or what we discussed and have a vision about it? Or if we're going to amend the scope based on this, maybe this will take you to another circle of like to revise the nexus again, then you are stuck in this circle. So just try to give my experience about how the process is designed and to ensure that we are moving fast and progressing rather than to get stuck at a certain point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rami. And yes, we are trying to move forward. You know, these are discussions for solutions. And of course, those of you, we will discuss Nexus at this meeting. And let's see if we can move forward in the way that we thought, with a big scope of covered taxes. And then we will see how the discussions, because you're all invited, of course, to your input on Nexus and see how that affects that scope. I got two interventions, Egypt and then Sierra Leone. First, Egypt, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Madam Co-Lead, for giving us the floor to present Egypt's position. And thank you for all the work undertaken on this important document. I want to highlight that we align ourselves with the statement of the African Group and support its position that the covered taxes should include all types of income, whether it is delivered physically or remotely. We further align with the African Group on the importance of beginning with a clear definition to be followed by the discussion on Nexus as a necessary steps to ensure coherence. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Egypt. Sierra Leone, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Sierra Leone aligns itself with the African Group and the submission made by Nigeria on behalf of the African Group. For Sierra Leone, we can argue that before we look at taxing rights, which is Nexus, we must first agree on what taxes are covered, what types of income or services are in play, and which economic activities fall under the instruments. Scope answers what is being regulated, whilst Nexus answers who can tax it. Without scope, Nexus schools float in the air. Countries take past each other, income tax versus levy, or versus DST, or versus withholding tax. To me, that is why I feel procedurally, scope is always negotiated first. From Sierra Leone point of view and the African point of view, scope determines whether Nexus schools even apply. If the scope is defined narrowly, Nexus becomes irrelevant for many modern taxes. Digital, service-based, or simplified taxes fall outside the framework. Source countries lose practical taxing rights before Nexus is discussed. So we are saying, in effect, do not lock us into narrow scope and then offer us innovative Nexus that applies to almost nothing. Scope sets the ceiling. Nexus fills the room. For Sierra Leone, we see it as Scope sets the outer boundary of taxing rights. Nexus allocates taxing rights within that boundary. If scope is narrow, Nexus cannot fix the imbalances. If scope is broad, Nexus can be designed flexibly and fairly. So we recommend that we determine the scope before we talk of Nexuses. Thank you. Chair.
Thank you very much, Sierra Leone. I have no more interventions. I think that, as I said, we're going... Oh, sorry, just got an intervention from Algeria. Please go ahead, Algeria.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Nous voulons vous remercier déjà pour la note conceptuelle qui reflète effectivement toutes les positions de tous les États, de tous les États membres, mais également les problématiques que font face les pays en développement. En ce qui concerne l'approche qui a été proposée, donc nous soutenons l'approche proposée dans la note conceptuelle, mais également donc on commence par une approche par le champ d'application et en couvrant le maximum de services possibles, puis on passera au Nexus donc d'une manière progressive et c'est comme ça pour qu'on puisse faire le travail de manière évolutive. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Algeria. I have Israel, please. Go ahead.
Thank you, and thank you for the work that was done for the group. I want to say just one thing that I'm still baffled because for me the nexus is the root of things, and I cannot feel that I can answer regarding the scope without understanding the nexus. So this is why I prefer it like that. We can start with a scope that is all taxes, and then go to the nexus, and then start to eliminate some. It's the same as now talking about shall we have this or this tax inside. So it's a bit, for me, I cannot feel that I can answer the scope now before I can understand the nexus. Thank you.
Thank you, Israel. Yeah, I think, it's sort of, it's an approach where some members, a few, but I think a few thinks that nexus is the first stage. Now, I think let's go forward with the discussion and see if you can sort of discuss nexus and then we can revise the taxes covered, yeah? Because I don't think we want to spend more time on this issue now. I think it's slightly semantic to me, but it might seem important for some of you, but I do think that the way forward, and I think everyone agrees that we should sort of include all taxes that covers services cross-border. And I think no one has said that we shouldn't cover a tax that is today called DST. So, and that's where we wanted to start off. We didn't want to have that discussion. So let's see the next slide and see if we can move on now. So the next discussion I would like to invite you to, okay, let's see. I can look there. See, yeah. It's the material scope, so the services covered. We wanted to keep a broad concept of services, and then we wanted to hear from you if we should have differentiation between types of services. And we have some explanation there: technical management, automated digital, and intergroup services. So I'm happy to invite you to start the discussion on the material scope. What are the services covered and the scope of services? Now you go back here. How do you go back? You have to be technical here. Oh. Yeah, no, thank you. I think we've already heard that we should have a broad scope of all services. So, you know, I don't think perhaps you need to address that first point. The second point, I think, is more interesting in that sense. Should we have differentiation? And then again, you know, let's not sort of talk about nexus yet. Do you think at this stage that there are different types of services that might need different nexus rules? But let's talk about the material scope first, and then we will look into the nexus rules afterwards. So we don't have the same discussions that we already have had. Or we could just move on if you think that we should just keep a broad scope for the time being and we don't need to differentiate now. We can differentiate when we talk about nexus. That's a different option. Seems to be the options prepared, or you're tired and you want to go for lunch. I give you a couple of minutes to think about it, and otherwise we just move on. And we just take a broad scope of all services provided cross-border. And the differentiation, we can discuss it under the nexus discussion. We have ODI again. ODI, what was ODI? Yeah.
ODI, it is, I think.
ODI, please go ahead and present yourself again, please.
Hello. Sorry for my voice. Mona Baraka from ODI. So on the question for differentiation
Sorry, could you just explain what ODI is for everyone,
Yes.
please?
It's Overseas Development Institute, which is a think tank based in the UK in London. And we have a department on international taxation where I'm based. So going back to the question on the differentiation between the types of services, just a very quick intervention. I think it would be beneficial because the intra-group services and the different types of services have different margins. So later on when we, when Protocol 1 is going to probably set some rates for taxing the services, this could be beneficial. Because the profit margins might differ between the type of services. This is just what I wanted to highlight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now I got the Russian Federation, please.
Большое спасибо, госпожа председатель, за предоставленное слово. Поскольку мы движемся в логике тех материалов, которые вы представили, поэтому мы посчитали необходимым отреагировать на те вопросы, которые представлены, соответственно, для обсуждения. Выступая первыми, нам трудно предугадать, какое развитие получит эта дискуссия, поэтому остановимся, наверное, на тех принципах, которые мы бы отстаивали с точки зрения и подходах, которые бы мы отстаивали с точки зрения позиции нашей страны в отношении этих вопросов. Мы продолжаем придерживаться тех заключений, которые содержатся в Concept Note, а именно в пункте 31, в том смысле, что, отвечая на первый вопрос, мы все-таки выступаем за более широкое определение этих услуг. Если в дальнейшем дискуссия будет построена таким образом, стоит ли все услуги туда включать или какие-то исключать, наверное, мы бы отстаивали тот подход, что мы предложили бы все-таки перечислить те услуги, которые бы не входили бы в определение данной концепции, нежели перечислять все услуги, которые включились бы в это широкое определение. Надеюсь, что мы были поняты правильно. Большое спасибо.
Thank you very much, Russian Federation. I have Peru. Please go ahead.
Muchas gracias, señora coordinadora, por brindarme la palabra. En el caso del Perú, nosotros estamos de acuerdo con lo que plantea de que el protocolo se aplique a un amplio conjunto de servicios. Entendemos de que como vaya evolucionando el trabajo del comité y las negociaciones, se tendrá mayor claridad sobre qué servicios serán excluidos del ámbito de la aplicación de este protocolo pero sí quisiéramos que se tenga cuidado en no excluir servicios relacionados a temas digitales o lo relacionado a asistencia técnica. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, Perú. España, por favor.
Muchas gracias. Nosotros también somos partidarios de que haya un amplio ámbito, pero queríamos, y que también que estén diferenciados, precisamente porque van a tener diferente nexo y todo eso que ya lo veremos después. Pero quería saber, en primer lugar, la diferenciación de servicios intragrupo no lo entendemos mucho, porque al final serán servicios que podrán entrar en la categoría de servicios tradicionales o servicios online, o servicios, o sea, no nos parece que sea una categoría independiente. Y nos falta por ver una categoría, yo había entendido en el escrito, que es el de los servicios que son, digamos, que pueden ser tradicionales, pero que se pueden ahora desempeñar de una forma remota, como puede ser un psicólogo online o lo que sea. Esos no sé si son o sea, no sé qué nombre tienen y cómo se están diferenciados aquí en el slide. Thank you. Gracias.
Muchas gracias, España. Nigeria, please. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Co-Lead. I will be speaking on behalf of the African Group. The African Group is not averse to a structured classification to support tailor-made tax rules. However, we have not seen, we are looking forward to having a categorization presented so that we can look at it to know whether that categorization is what we will be willing to support. However, what is called here is for us that the services must be broad, all services must be covered. Then, after covering all services in scope, we are not averse to having those services categorized. Thank you.
Thank you, Nigeria. Yeah, I think just to explain the slide that we have up so that we can follow you. The idea is to confirm two issues, that we have a broad scope and that we are able or will be able to differentiate between different types of services. Those services that are on there, of course, are not the only ones that we might be differentiating, because it will be, for instance, other services that we perhaps think that they could be excluded. But you know, these are just ideas, and you're the ones who are going to present or tell us, what the next step here are. The way I see it, I just want to confirm that that's the way I understand it. We keep a broad scope of types of services, and we are going to be able to differentiate between different types of services. And then we will look into the details of what those different types are. But we're not defining them now. We just, if you want to say something like, like Spain just said, professional services online, they will be there, and then we will keep, that discussion. So, we keep that point here, and you're very welcome to include other services that you think could be differentiated now, or if you want to discuss it at Nexus, that also possibly, of course, could come up in that discussion. I have India. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. If one looks at what is written in paragraph 31 of the concept paper, which says that the protocol will not include a definition of services except to the extent it excludes certain services from coverage. And then here on the slide, it talks of differentiation. I think it's more or less the same thing. But one thing that we would like to say, that whatever approach we take, there is no escape from approaching this reality that there are different types of services out there. We can have a broad concept of services. But India is a country which is a largely service-driven economy. So we understand that there are different types of services out there. There are services that form the core activity of the cross-border transaction in terms of whether it is software development or IT-enabled service. There are services that are low value-adding services. There are services that are incidental. Then there is this whole automated digital services that is taking place. There are services that have solutions under the current framework which are acceptable. There are certain services which have escaped that nexus. So that we will have to differentiate these services, that we will have to maybe list them out, that we will have to possibly come up with different type of solutions. That is something that we cannot shy away from. So I think that in whatever way we describe it, whether we say that we will have a broad concept and then we will have carve-outs out of that, or right from the word go, we will list them out. We believe we are eventually doing the same thing, and we should be prepared for that. That is the only way that we will be able to address this issue in such a way that it will serve the purpose of all of those of us around the table. Thank you.
Thank you very much, India. I have United Arab Emirates. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Co-Lead. First, we just wanted to extend our thanks for the production of these papers in advance, which has given us a good amount of time to consider what's being proposed. Just in terms of what's on the screen there, it is our view that intergroup services should not be called out separately or distinguished separately, but rather the focus should be on the functional profile of the service itself. This, of course, is subject to the intergroup service being considered an intergroup service under the benefits test of the UN Transfer Pricing Manual. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, United Arab Emirates. I have Switzerland. Please go ahead.
Howdy this morning. It's nice to see you, Madam Khalid. I've been watching the Super Bowl, so I'm thinking I'm getting a little American here with my greetings. I hope you all had a good weekend with the cold. Regarding differentiation, I would say it would be very important to differentiate, if I can pronounce it, the different types of services. I mean, in our virtual discussions, we talked about traditional services, and then we have the notion of digitally delivered services, which are the traditional ones that now can be done remotely. And if we go back to our discussions last summer of all the different situations, I think we also had cases where we agreed that the rules didn't need to be changed, that physical presence was still the applicable principle. So it'll be important to differentiate between all those different types of situations. And then, of course, next to that, you have automatic digital services that is a whole category in itself. And as we reflect on this, I think we also have to keep in mind the fact that if we go down a line of a gross-based taxation, then it's important to know if we're in a high profit margin or low profit margins. We talked about all the difficulties with gross taxation when it's a low profit margin, because reality is, if we even a relatively low tax rate might eat up all the profit in the market jurisdiction if it is a low profit business, or a typical low profit business. And this would be contrary to, for instance, Article 5 as drafted today, where basically both countries has a right to tax, and we wouldn't want a situation where only the market would be able to tax. So all this to say that for us it's very important to make a differentiation between the different services.
Thank you very much, Switzerland. Yes, now I started to look at the Super Bowl as well, but as I didn't understand anything, I switched to the Olympic Games, and it became much more international. Really amazing things they do, these Olympic and participants. So I have exactly now Canada, which I actually had the pleasure of seeing figure skating yesterday. So. Go ahead, Canada.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Unfortunately, I haven't had the pleasure to watch neither the Olympics nor the Super Bowl, so I'll stick to the regular salutations. I just have two comments that I would like to make, and both in terms of thinking just for now if any categories of services should be excluded from the scope of the protocol or not. I agree that there's probably implications with the discussions that will come later on Nexus in terms of deciding whether other categories should be differentiated. So I'll just confine myself to the question of exclusions for now. Having read the commentary to the Article 12, the new Article 12A, if that is the proper designation, there's a fairly long discussion in that commentary of personal services, meaning by that services that are purchased by an individual or an entity that is not a business, and that is the service is not used as business input but only consumed, is for imported for final consumption. I think it's something that the committee should consider whether the protocol should cover this category of services or not. In my mind, it's not obvious that the rationale that have been discussed so far to think about a new approach to the taxation of the services would apply to that category. I'm not sure. Well, it's fairly obvious to me that it doesn't raise any concern from a profit shifting standpoint. These services would not be deductible from the income tax base in the source country to begin with. And actually, my interpretation is that they would, taxing these services would function very much as just imposing an additional tax on the import of services. And in that sense, I'm not sure I see a rationale to do that. Why would a country want to impose higher consumption tax to services that are being imported versus services that are provided from local suppliers or for higher taxes than consumption of goods for that matter? So in to put it more bluntly, my proposal would actually be to consider excluding these services. And my second comment would be that if we're considering we should think about the criteria on which we would select other categories of services to be excluded, so that we work from a single framework, and that we are sure if we are to exclude other services that we do it on the grounds of solid policy principles. And in that vein, I would probably use as criteria reasons why taxing some particular type of services would have more harmful economic impact. And we saw last week in the study that was presented to us by the international the ICC, the International Chamber of Commerce, that there might be indeed some different economic impact of taxing services depending on the type of services. And I presume there it's depending on the market structure, on the elasticities that that could be there in some that could be different according on the type of services. So obviously, I don't know. We would need more analysis to be able to identify if any such category of services are indeed more economic harmful. So I'm not in a position right now to make any specific proposal as to which one should be exempted, but I think it's certainly worth considering. Obviously, for the reason that we don't want to create too much economic distortions in the approach that we're taking. So to me, it clearly makes sense to have a look at whether we could mitigate these impact by excluding certain category of services that would be more harmful here. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that input. I think as a conclusion, I understand that you're interested in differentiating different types of services. And of course, we can look into which ones, and that's the discussion that we're going to have. As you referred to 12AA, as you know, that decision was taken not to it's within the scope of 12AA, the personal services. Was a big discussion there, so those of you who are interested in that could follow that discussion, and I think it's in the commentary as well of the reasons why that it was kept within the scope of 12AA. And I think there's one point, you know, when you discuss 12AA, what is the option if you do not have a tax treaty? Because, you know, if you discuss different models, you have the OECD model, you have the UN model, and you have countries who don't sign up to any of them because they don't like them. And so, you know, what is the preference for a country to sign up to perhaps 12AA or not having a tax treaty? I don't think we've seen that study. And I think in this area and where we are sitting, there are many countries who do not have tax treaties because they don't like the solutions of any model. And that's not been studied at all. So, you know, if we're trying to provide models to make more countries able to sign up to a multilateral agreement, which is what we're trying to do here, I think that's very, very positive. And I think, you know, that's the way we should look at it instead of trying to, you know, say that this is the way forward only. You know, that we are here now to solve a problem that I think we all feel needs to be solved. And let's do that in the multilateral way that we can try to get together as many of us as possible to solve. I have Italy, please, go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Co-Chair, and also thank you for this last food of thought you gave us. We are prepared to have a concept of services, of course, and also then to discuss of possible exclusion like Russia or United Arab Emirates said. But for the stage of the exercise, we would like to concentrate more on your second question, if we want to have the differentiation between types of service. Yes, we do, like India and Switzerland said, we are sympathetic of much of the argument they proposed. Basically, we want different type of services because we believe that when we draft the protocol, we have to provide for different nexus rules for different kind of services. This is something that we believe is fair for a future-proof legal instrument. Perhaps we felt more at ease with the categorization we read in the option paper, which was traditional service, digital service, remotely provided services, which fit better into the categories of nexus you first highlighted in one of the first slides of your presentation, which were payment nexus, physical present nexus, or economic and market nexus. We do believe that the physical present nexus still have some ground to stay there, and of course we are ready to work for the others. We are of the view that nexus based only on the location of payer on the market are not the most appropriate connecting factors, because when we will be designing the nexus for every kind of service, we think that the right nexus in a globalized and digitalized economy should be rooted in a real economic contribution of the business in a given jurisdiction, as it is much easier with traditional service and physical presence nexus. So we want to differentiate in that mood. We are ready to have a broad concept with possible exclusion. And we want to see different nexus rules, perhaps according to the categorization we had in our option paper. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that input, Italy. I have Kenya. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Colin, for the opportunity. Kenya is in tandem with the position that has been put forth by Nigeria on behalf of the African group. and which actually speaks to the terms of reference under paragraph 15, and what has also been captured in the options paper under paragraph 31. We do envisage that the protocol should cover a broad range of services. That is it. And because of the nature of services and how they are performed, we foresee the possibility of categorizing the services for ease of administration. And just to give forth a few examples, and I think it has been mentioned by some of our colleagues, is on the question of how they are performed, that is physical, the ones that are physically performed, ones that are remotely performed, and generally the automated digital services. Thank you.
Thank you, Kenya. I have Nigeria. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Collins. I will be speaking on behalf of the African group and also in support of the view that have been expressed by Kenya. We are taking a cue from your comments that the member states can make suggestions on what we think should be the categorization. And for African group, we are willing to propose or to go with categorization that's in these three forms. Number one is the first one to be physically performed services. The second one, remotely provided services. And the third one, the automated digital services. Those are the three categorizations that is proposed by the African group. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that concrete proposal, African group. I have Singapore. Please go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. First, I would also like to express my thanks to Madam Co-Chair, as well as all the delegates that have been working very hard on this protocol. The concept paper actually puts forth quite a number of points, which I take it that we will be discussing them in greater details in the next 2-3 days. So for today, I would just want to provide our very high-level comments to what has been laid out in the slide. First, I have heard calls that the protocol should cover a broad scope of services, and I do understand why this call has been made. Our view is that recognizing that if we intend for the protocol to be broad in the scope, I think we have to recognize that the services are really diverse and there are different types of services. Here, I think I echo the views that have been shared by a couple of other colleagues from India, Switzerland, Italy, and even Kenya as well, that we need to differentiate the different types of services. I don't think we can just have a single definition of services. On how the classification should be made, we hold the same view as Kenya. I personally think that the current proposed classification on the slide is a bit too narrow. I think we should go for a broader definition, recognizing that there are different characteristics of different kinds of services. So I do agree that we can start off with classifying services into 3 subgroups. One would be services that are actually provided in person. Second categories would be services that are provided remotely. And the third kind of services would be services that are provided through automated digital channel. Here, I can imagine that after we agree on the services, we need to move on to the discussion on the nexus. And I cannot accept a situation that there will be a one-size-fits-all nexus, recognizing that the services are provided through different channels. And I would also like to stress at this point that we recognize that most services are still provided in person, which then means that the current taxation rules based on physical nexus, based on permanent establishment, they are still very relevant and robust. So I think in coming up with different kind of services and different nexus rules, I think we need to continue to remember that the current rules that are robust, we should continue to retain them and not to do away with them, because that would create lots of new issues that we will need to deal with as well. And I will stop here for now. Thanks.
Thank you, Singapore. I have China. Please go ahead, China.
Thank you, Madam Colley. Since it is the first time taking the floor, I would like to take this opportunity to express our gratitude to Madam Colley and Secretary and some of the colleagues for this production of the scoping paper. Two quick comments. First, I would like to share the same compliments already expressed by the colleague from India and Switzerland and some other countries as well. In real business, there are definitely different types of services which should be differentiated in terms of scoping, and maybe then a different type of tax treatments. Secondly, it's a kind of question about the intra-group services. I think already mentioned by the colleague from UAE, intra-group services, I think, should not be listed here and should be covered in terms of nature, most likely already in technical or management services. I'll start here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, China. I have Germany. Please go ahead, Germany.
Thank you, Madam Co-Lead. Germany shares the support expressed by other delegations, just to mention China, India, Switzerland, and Kenya for differentiated treatment of services. As to how they are to be differentiated remains probably to be discussed. Particularly, I would like to align myself with Canada in stating that it would be beneficial to establish criteria for the differentiating of services, not only to ensure a coherent classification at this point in time based on consistent political, economic, and also legal circumstances or considerations, perspectives, but it would also ensure that we have necessary guardrails when it comes to new services that are not known to us yet, but that might emerge in the future, and who can then help inform us how to deal with them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Germany. I have Estonia. Please go ahead, Estonia.
Thank you. I support all the countries that spoke before me and said that we should differentiate between different services, and for different reasons. I quite liked how India brought out the fact that there are also services that can be considered core or ancillary services, and we often don't talk about that. And then putting it together with what Switzerland said, I thought about financial services that might be high margin, but also the core services, meaning that the whole of the profits of the company providing financial services could be made up of the service fees, and that would merit a different approach. But as Germany said, this discussion lies ahead of us, and to provide something different from what everybody else has already said, then to the scope. I don't think we should actually exclude anything, because then we would come to a question, what do we do with the excluded services? Do we all apply the domestic laws to it, or how do we treat those? And we also shouldn't presume that all the services should be also taxable in the source country. We may decide otherwise. So it is okay to treat the services differently, but I think that for the sake of clarity and legal certainty, they could all be covered by the protocol. Even if we should decide, it doesn't matter whether we decide for the shared taxation, source country taxation, or the residence country taxation only. Then we can sort of keep the whole picture together in a better manner. But this is an initial comment. We don't really know how the work on the protocol will exactly go, so I may need to withdraw it at the later stage. I don't know yet. Thank you.
Thank you, Estonia. Yeah, thank you for bringing up that latest point. I think raising those type of issues now is a good point, because we're initiating the work, and as we've said, the way we work then will limit or expand, or but we start from a comprehensive, and then we work ourselves through. We look at nexus, etc., and we see how the solutions can then sort of evolve from that discussion. I have Belgium first, thank you, and then after that is Egypt. So.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just want to echo the distinguished delegates before me from India, China, Italy, UAE, Kenya, Germany, and Estonia, and Switzerland. We believe differentiation is key here, and that it is important. If we look at the UN model, you also see already the differentiation for the automated digital services. I am a bit on the comment you made, Ms. Khalid, is on the fact that many countries don't have tax treaties because they don't like the models. I believe there are many reasons that they don't have tax treaties, maybe, but I don't believe it is that the reason for that would be that they don't like the models that are existing. Maybe it's more to protect their revenue basis, or there are problems that the capacity that they have, and because we all know, and it has been stated in ECOSOC also many times, that tax treaties are valuable and that they are important to attract foreign investment, of course. So we cannot forget that and just say that that is the reason. I understand you say we want to solve issues that there are, but I do think we have to be mindful of bringing generalizations here. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment, Belgium. Let me just sort of clarify it a little bit. I think what I wanted to say was that there's no study really on the impact if you do not sign a tax treaty, and that's we are facing that. This is the UN, where a large group actually don't sign up to tax treaties. Now, why they don't do it, I don't know. It's their domestic policy on doing it or not doing it. Perhaps it's because they don't find the models correct, or for other reasons. And I think what you said probably might be the correct one, is that they don't want to lose their sovereign rights to tax, and fair enough. I just wanted to make that point clear. Let me see. I have Egypt. I said yes. Egypt, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Khalid, for giving me the floor for the second time. I would like to highlight that during our transfer pricing audits in Egypt, we face different kinds of services, cross-border services. Some of them are core, others are supportive in nature. So service transactions are one of the most common transactions that may lead to profit shifting, especially in developing countries with high corporate income tax rates. Therefore, we align our position with our colleagues from India and Nigeria on their position on the differentiation between services. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Egypt. I have the Netherlands, please.
Thank you, Khalid. Just really briefly, we agree with India, Switzerland, China, and others that it seems unavoidable to differentiate looking at the broad range of margins in the service sector and the different type of nexus being relevant. A point of attention is that in practice, it will of course lead to discussions in which particular category, particular services fall, and that could make it fragile from a tax certainty perspective and will make the solution more complex. At least it makes it important to have a clear and solid dispute prevention and resolution in place. That is, of course, we have the discussion later. We also support the call for developing clear criteria and guardrails, so to make the categorization more future-proof. Thank you.
Thank you very much, the Netherlands. I have Norway. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Colleague.
We agree with those countries, Switzerland, India, Canada, Italy, UAE, China, and others, that has said that there is a clear need to differentiate between the types of services in this protocol. So we would support that. We don't really see a necessity to specifically address intragroup services as a separate category. I think that could be addressed using other labels. We would also agree that how these services should be treated in the protocol is a discussion that we need to have that relates both to nexus and method of taxation as envisaged in the paper, but we strongly believe that that discussion, like Canada also alluded to, needs to be to also cover the broader economic impact the mode of taxation will have on these services, as pointed to in the IMF paper that is referenced in this paper, and also the recent paper by Oxford Economics provided by the International Chamber of Commerce. It would be very important to ensure that what we do here can actually deliver on domestic resource mobilization. So, and for that purpose, it's not merely a question of whether or not you cover it in a treaty or not. It relates to more broader discussions of the impact. Thank you.
Thank you, Norway. I have Japan. Please go ahead, Japan.
Thank you, co-lead. We agree with others that differentiation is the key. When we say services, in reality, there are diverse types of services and they have different profit margins, for example. Therefore, imposing the same taxation on all types of services is not appropriate, but we also think that it is also important to ensure balance between fairness, simplicity, efficiency, and securing tax revenue. From administration perspective, maybe limiting the scope to services with high profit margins or limiting the scope to companies above a certain size could be an option as well. We also believe that it might be useful to understand the current landscape, including what types of services do exist and their characteristics. Thank you.
Thank you, Japan. And I have Czechia.
Thank you, Ms. Khalid, for giving me the floor again. I just wanted to very quickly say that if we use any categorization, that there should be a clear economic rationale for why we are using individual categories, and we should also define the criteria clearly so we don't create issues around classification of any new services as mentioned by Germany and the Netherlands. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to give Zambia the floor. And after that, I'm going to break for lunch. So after lunch, which I think starts at 3?
Yeah, we start at 3 after lunch. Yes.
3? 3 o'clock? Then we will give the floor to stakeholders. But Zambia first, and then we'll break for lunch. So we have a couple of minutes before the rush to the cafeteria. So please go ahead, Zambia.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Colleague. And Zambia supports a statement that was made by Nigeria on behalf of the African group, as well as many other countries that have spoken before me. We do agree that the protocol should apply to a broad range of services. As Zambia, we do have a number of MNEs, and intragroup services is one of the major services that we handle, especially in transfer pricing audits. And therefore, we do support the categories that have been presented by the Africa Group, and which were the physically performed services, the remote services, as well as automated digital services. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Zambia, and thank you for the discussion so far. And I will break for lunch, and we'll come back at 3 o'clock with stakeholders' views on this issue. Thank you.